Consultants on Call, solving organizational communication problems. Welcome to the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey case study by SunGroup. Over the next few minutes, we will discuss various aspects of this case study and our recommendations, but first, let's meet the team. Meet the SunGroup team. Shelby Fulton, Strategic Solutions Consultant. Shelby brings 2 years of professional experience in customer service, specializing in client communication and reception management. She is skilled in handling high-volume phone interactions, providing administrative support, and maintaining a welcoming environment for clients and colleagues alike. Natalie Charukian, Lead Research Consultant. Natalie has over 30 years of forensic accounting and business consulting, servicing clients in various industries from California to New York.
Okay, so we'll start with the case overview. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey is a regional transportation organization that operates major infrastructure such as airports, bridges, tunnels, train services, and bus terminals. The organization has always emphasized professionalism, loyalty, and strong can-do attitude. Employees took great pride in their work and viewed themselves as part of a family orientation culture built on service and reliability. In 1982, this identity was challenged when a growing number of unhoused individuals began seeking shelter in one of the Port Authority's business terminals. By 1985, the situation has spread across multiple facilities, becoming a company-wide issue. At first, the Port Authority treated homelessness as a facilities or safety problem, trying to remove people from the terminal, but public criticism grew. In 1987, many saw the organization actions as unethical and insensitive. In response, leadership created a homeless project team, funded research, and began forming partnerships with community organizations. By 1988, 2 drop-in centers had been established to provide assistance. Just 1 year later, in 1989, the Port Authority's rule had evolved from enforcement to advocacy, as it became recognized as a quiet supporter for homeless outreach. And then we will move on to key concepts. So to understand the Port Authority's communication and identity, we grew from 3 main theories. First, Albert and Wheaton's define organizational identity as what is central, distinctive, and enduring. For the Port Authorities, this meant professionalism, technical expertise, and a strong can-do attitude, qualities that guided how it viewed itself and how it responded to challenges. Second, Hatch and Skilts shows how identity, culture, and image consistently interact. When the homeless issue became public, the Port Authority's image suffered, which forced reflection on whether its internal identity still matched public expectations. Third, Ashford and Mel's theory of organizational identity explains why employees felt so loyal to the Port Authority. That loyalty reinforced their pride in the organization's professionalism, but also made them defensive even when the organization was criticized. Overall, these theories showed that Port Authority's identity as a technical fixer gave it confidence and unity, but also limited empathy and adaptability when addressing complex social issues like homelessness.
So here we have our analysis of communication strategies. Shows that organizations' communication was guided by its identity and control systems. First, Cheney and Christensen point out that identity shapes how leaders define problems. Here, most messaging reinforced the company's image instead of open dialogue, an example of auto communication. Second, internally, leadership created loyalty by fostering identification. According to Tompkins and Cheney, this leads to concerted control where employees police themselves. Third, Alvison and Wilmot's idea of identity regulation appears in how management defines what good employees look like, shaping everyday communication. And finally, the diversity side showed low cultural intelligence. Policies looked inclusive on paper, but failed to address silent discrimination, thus limiting innovation and employee trust. So now we're going to move on to outcomes and lessons learned. These communication strategies revealed both strengths and weaknesses. First step, the organization's identity-centered communication helped maintain unity. But Cheney and Christensen warned that self-referential patterns limit adaptability. Second, while employee identification built a cohesive culture, Tompkins and Cheney's concept of concerted control shows how this same cohesion discouraged innovation. Third, diversity initiatives were largely symbolic. The lack of cultural intelligence led to silent discrimination and missed opportunities for creativity. So the overall lesson is that strong organizational identity must be balanced with reflection and inclusion. When organizations pair self-awareness with open dialogue, they build trust, flexibility, and long-term effectiveness. And Shelby, I'm going to go ahead and turn over our recommendations to you, which is coming up right now.
Perfect, thank you. Based on our findings, we recommend several strategies to help the Port Authority and similar organizations communicate more effectively. First, leadership should regularly practice self-reflection, as Cheney and Christina's emphasized, to avoid self-reference communications. Second, identity must be adaptive. Organizations can preserve their core values but still evolve with new challenges. Third, encouraging employees' voice helps encourage contact control and keeps communications dynamics. Fourth, culture intelligence training is critical for empathy and inclusion, especially when addressing social issues like homelessness. Finally, aligning identity, culture, and image builds transparency and public trust. And then we'll go to our visual summary. This visual brings all of our findings together. At the top, we see that identity drives everything. It shows how leaderships preserve problems. But when the identity goes unexamined, communication becomes self-referential. Next, communication influences culture and can either empower or restrict employees. When employees are given a voice, the organization becomes more inactive. Diversity completes the cycle. Cultural intelligence broadens perspective and restores empathy, helping the organization connect its identity to the communication it serves. When these four areas are in balance, identity, communication, culture, and diversity, the result is ethical, inclusive, and adaptive communications.
Okay, so we have port authorities changing identity. The ports authority identity began as technical and ethical service provider. So basically, they were a regional fixer. Over time, events like 9/11 and political conflicts forced it to reevaluate that self-concept. Cheney and Christensen state that identity shapes what problems are even seen. For the Port Authority, communication became more open and self-reflective, and the organization didn't abandon its original strengths. It reframed them, turning its can-do engineering identity into a can communicate and can collaborate ethos. And Shelby?
Yeah, so Elvison's and Wilmot's dynamics for identity. So when we're looking at this figure, I wanted to explain what identity work, identity relation, and self-identity means. So identity work, employees make changes to their own identity as they experience organizational communication, drawing from personal life. Identity regulation, employees will participate in conversation on what makes a good employee. And self-identity, a person's qualities and potentials with how it relates to the organization. So when identity work is at play, employees would see how the Port Authority was handling the homeless issue. Management would give tasks that would relate to removing the homeless, shaping how the employees should act and feel about the homeless. This ties into identity regulation. Management would express how a good employee will agree with the organization's decisions. Then, by employees being shaped into acting and feeling a certain way, they will likely start to shape their own self identity based on these views of their other organizations. As a company changes their views, so does employees' identity as well as self identity.
Okay, homelessness and auto communication. When facing homelessness in its terminals, the Port Authority's professional identity led leaders to treat it as a facilities issue, something to manage, not understand. So earlier I mentioned that Cheney and Christensen argued that identity shapes what problems are even seen. Here, the authority saw disorder, not people. Their messaging focused on control and cleanliness, which made communication self referential. It looked outward, but really served to reassure the organization that it was still competent and ethical. So, in effect, the authority was literally talking to itself. Only after criticism from external partners did it begin to see homelessness as a shared social responsibility. And Shelby, I'll turn the next one over to you.
So I want to talk about Ashford's and Mel's framework. So the distinctiveness of the organization, when members have bestowed their own personal self-identity, each employee has their own self-identity in the organization. This identity gets morphed into the organization's identity. And then the pristine of an organization is when members get self-esteem boost. When employees and organizations identity becomes similar, they will get a self-esteem boost for feeling validated. And then awareness of other organizations, awareness of one's own organization becomes stronger when members are aware of other organizations. If employees of Port Authority compare their organization with other transportation organization, they become more aware of their organizational identity. And then competition with other organizations. Once there is competition, the differences of the organizations become more clear. And then if employees have a strong belief in their organization, competition with other organizations become more clear. They are able to see more clearly the differences. And then we'll talk about group formation factors. This includes shared background, personal relationship, and common yearning. When employees and organizations have similar beliefs, they start to share similar backgrounds, relationships, and common yearning. With all these factors at play, a strong organizational identification becomes very prominent. The more an employee agrees with the company, the stronger their organizational identification becomes.
Okay, so moving on to diversity and the homelessness response. So, if the Port Authority had been more diverse and culturally intelligent, its approach to homelessness might have looked different. In our chapter 8.3, it's explained that diversity expands creativity and problem solving. So, a multicultural team might have viewed homelessness not just as a maintenance issue, but as a community challenge requiring compassion and partnership. With high cultural intelligence, leaders have communicated with empathy and worked with social agencies instead of focusing on enforcement. But most importantly, diversity helps organizations avoid silent discrimination. It keeps communication open, exclusive, and responsive. Heading into our key takeaways, our main takeaway from this case is that communication always mirrors identity. The Port Authority's self-image as technical and professional helped it achieve big things, but it also narrowed what leaders perceived as problems. Communication became self-referential that focused on maintaining control and credibility. internally speaking, strong identification kept employees loyal, but also discouraged them from open dialogue. Traits that the Port Authority could have used to address social issues more effectively would have been diversity and cultural intelligence, which would have expanded empathy and innovation.
Yeah, and to add to,
Sorry.
it's okay. It's okay. I just wanted to add one thing from Natalie's key takeaways. Another would be the organizational identity, culture, and image plays a big part in who the organization is. When a company's image does not reflect on their identity culture, the company will make changes in order to stay true to their self-identity and culture. Now we can go to the next slide.
Yes, now I can. Okay.
Yeah, and then thank you for watching. Our MLA references is mostly the book, but I did find another reference to kind of help me better understand some of the concepts. So thank you.
Bye now. Thank you.